Hi, good morning. This is Tom Dent, your host for That Saturday Show. We're going to have kind of an interesting presentation this week. My guest for the TV show in the studio, I kind of lost communications with them, but we're going to do sort of an emergency podcast that's going to be broadcast as our TV show. And the studio is going to grab this podcast off YouTube and show it on Comcast 27 and public access. But what's important is we need to get as many people aware of the issue that we're going to discuss by today and very early tomorrow morning, because everything happens at 9 p.m. and I'll let my guests explain that. On the program, we're going to have Mariel Nananzi, the Executive Director for New Energy Economy, and Alejandra Lyons, the Coalition Co-Coordinator from No Fall Solutions. We're going to be talking about this very dangerous, very loosely merged bill in the state legislature called House Bill 12. After that, we're going to, if we can, technically, we're going to try to squeeze the song in after that. If we can do that, that's going to be Matt Jones doing Ronnie Talk to Russia. After that, we're going to go back to Santa Fe with Andres Valdes, the Executive Director of Vecinos United, who's following SB 252 law enforcement bills, and he's going to tell us what's going on with that. So the announcement is that on March 5th at Morningside Park at 1 p.m., there's going to be a huge march to Louisiana and Gibson to Kirtland Air Force Base and Sandia Labs development against nuclear proliferation and nuclear development. And the participants are going to be Veterans for Peace, Albuquerque Chapter, Stop the War Machine, the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice is going to be represented there, and even the Raging Grannies will be there. So again, that's March 5th, Morningside Park. That's Aliso and near the one-ways at 1 p.m. So welcome, Mariel and Alejandra. How are you guys doing?
Good, thank great, you. Tom.
Okay, so I've been doing as much homework as I can on this bill, and it looks like there's a number of other bills that have been merged in here. It looks like with private partnerships and stuff like that, it creates this kind of huge oversight agency that's kind of backwards. It sort of lets the industries do whatever they want and do very little monitoring over time. And it's House Bill 12 is sponsored by a number of Democrats, Meredith Dixon and Helica Rubio, Christina Ortiz, Nathan Small, who, by the way, received close to $46,000 from the oil, gas, and extractive industries, and Patricia Lundstrom. And this bill, the reason we're doing this right now is it's going to be heard in front of the House Energy and Natural Resources Committee at 9 a.m. At the Roundhouse in room 317. So I'll let either Mariel or Alejandra go ahead and start explaining this bill and the situation.
Yes, I'll start off. This is Alejandria with New Mexico No Fall Solutions. Really quick, I'll just say, we are a group of a coalition of youth, indigenous, and frontline environmental and climate justice orgs and legacy environmental justice orgs at that. And this bill is something that, we've seen in the works probably since 2019, because folks like Patty Lindstrom have been trying to get public partnerships as well as hydrogen pushed through the legislature for some time now. Mm-hmm. And so, we're called New Mexico No Fall Solutions because what we're seeing with bills like this is that it's co-opting climate justice. And what we mean by that is that this bill would pave the way to virtually cut all public oversight, commodify the earth, and basically move towards this more neoliberal free market idea. And it's really dangerous because it includes technologies like nuclear, which we already know are very dangerous and have been very dangerous to folks living near the sites in Navajo Nation. Um, and it threatens our water sources with unproven technologies like carbon capture sequestration, which is essentially putting liquid carbon into the ground. And it continues to prop the fossil fuel industry through things like hydrogen, and wants to retool some of these facilities. And like you mentioned, Tom, really what it is comes down to is there are federal dollars coming down. And instead of investing in things like wind and solar, we are going and throwing money, and New Mexico is going to be left with the bag. And this bill outlines all of those technologies and co-ops the just transition for workers that are, being held hostage by this bill. Mariel, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, or Tom, if you had any follow-up.
I think that this is Marielle Nanasi from New Energy Economy, and thank you so much for having both of us on, because this is a really important matter. As you said, this will be what they are calling the Advanced Energy Technology Act, is going to be heard this Saturday in House Energy at 9 o'clock. So for people to join in person, of course, that would be terrific. As you said, it's in room 317, and you got to get there early because it's a small room. But if you want, you can go online to NM Legis and join via Zoom. And really, what's happened is that last year, in particular, the environmental community came together and killed 5 different variations of this bill. But these are like a combination of all those bills on steroids. And what it's got a shot in the arm from the federal government, because Michelle Lujan Grisham's administration, specifically with Cabinet Secretary James Kenney, but also Alicia Keys from the Economic Department and Sarah Cottrell Props from MNERD, represent New Mexico in the Western Interstate Hydrogen Hub, and that is what they are referring to as WISH. And really, that's what it is. It's almost like a child wish, except that we know that these technologies don't work. That is the thing, that if there's one thing that people should go away with, it'd be one thing like, there's this great Gil Scott-Heron song when it says like, something about people are going and walking on the moon, but we got rats in our apartments, and so there's a question about like, what is the kind of spending and is it appropriate? But this, at least they got to the moon. Their hydrogen technology does not work. And what it will be is it's a transfer of wealth. That's what this bill is more about than pretty much anything I've ever seen in my lifetime. This is like a bill that seeks to engulf the hydrogen economy, as I said, extreme extraction hydrogen economy, and really engulf anything in its path. And so just the way that it, incorporated the worker transition fund, that's what it's going to do to the rest of our society, if it's allowed, which is to prioritize these crazy, unproven, boondoggle fossil fuel projects and ignore everything else. Like, what we need for our society, which is to address climate and to address poverty and to address racism and address the health crisis that we're in. I mean, housing crisis. I mean, you just name it, right? This is not doing any of that. This is engulfing those things for and it's a transference. I just want everybody to know it's an unlimited public transfer of wealth using our dollars and going to private companies. And the companies that it's going to are some of the wealthiest companies on the planet, these energy companies. And that's what this bill is about. And it also does away with lots of democratic rights. It makes an exception for IPRA, that's the Inspection of Public Records Act. It makes an exception for the procurement policies. I mean, the procurement code. So, you know, it's basically stopping at nothing for more money.
No, that's crazy. I'm seeing some loose stipulations about these private partnerships in the bill. And just to refresh, I mean, for instance, it's been long thought that our governor was kind of in the pocket of oil and gas, and apparently she received in her inauguration fund close to $90,000 from these companies. That include companies like what is it, Chevron, Exxon. It goes on, right?
Yep. Yep.
And our speaker of the House received close to $74,000 from these industries.
Yeah. The thing is that we're going to have to transform society to one that has justice at its core, not money at its core. Because because if we continue down this path, it will just create greater divides, which is what we are seeing. We are seeing the greatest wealth division in the history of the world, and people are suffering as a result. And so this is more of that. But this is that on steroids. And you're right. I mean, the question about who is literally funding and perpetuating our government and thereby in the wake dismissing democratic rights and dismissing people's lives. That's the issue.
I heard there could be kind of a blowback where these companies actually receive money back. And as we talked about on plenty of other programs, I mean, there's been tons of money, billions of dollars in a rainy day fund that was sort of provided by the oil and gas and extraction agencies. And it's kind of funny at the same time that the governor is putting through a bill to give everybody in the state rebates of like $750 per individual and $1,500 for married couples, which is sort of looked like as a gift for like, thank you for putting up with us. Sorry to use the term, raping your state and raping your environment.
That's the word I used with Alejandria before we got on your show.
Well, I wish I knew about this earlier. I wish I could have got you guys on by Wednesday, but like I said in the beginning, this is a podcast that everybody should hear before Saturday morning, and this is a terribly important issue for the future of New Mexico.
If people would go to newenergyeconomy.org and send the committee an email. There's fact sheets that are available that people can read up on the bill, or just look at it yourself. It's not actually, I mean, it's pretty explicit. The one thing that they don't ever use is the word hydrogen, because they think that that's too toxic. But there's code words for it throughout the bill, including their favorite, which is hard to decarbonize industry. That's their new moniker for hydrogen.
And there's one part that makes it look like it's all like a kind of new Green Deal, but apparently they're just greenwashing us. They're talking about solar, wind, geothermal, biomass, and for some bizarre reason, since we don't have any oceans or anything, they're talking about wave or tidal technologies.
Yeah, and those are all technologies that are trying to manipulate natural patterns and capitalize on what they even call nature-based solutions. And those are basically market and technology trying to manipulate the earth. And it goes, again, commodifying the earth, the elements of life, air, land, and water, and the people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that there was some action. There was a sit-in at the Roundhouse on the 23rd that involved a bunch of indigenous and local groups with Earth Care, 1680, Pueblo Action Alliance, Indigenous Lifeways, Yucca, and some other groups.
Yeah, I mean, folks sat in the governor's office on the third floor after our rally, where we spoke against a lot of these false solutions and really called out this piece because, you know, this is undermining our democratic processes. It's undermining the agencies that we need, because those of us who, you know, work against fracking and already the industry that is here, we see that there is no oversight and that these departments are not funded. And it's really the job of the governor to see this through. And, you know, she was there at the previous day to that Namoga private reception at the Laredo. And we actually asked her, me and Mariel saw her, we asked her, you know, and she makes it sound like it's legislature that doesn't want to fund it. And so it's like kicking the can down the road. And so I felt like yesterday the action was one to call the attention of all the climate groups that were there at the Roundhouse and to say enough is enough.
Yeah. To reiterate, no, I'm sorry.
If I can, it's really important to underscore what Alejandra said. I mean, we have a current quote unquote regulatory agency that really does little to nothing to regulate oil and gas. And because they want those fortunes to keep on flowing in to the top echelon, just like you have already iterated, Tom. And, you know, Exxon, the largest contributor to the governor, I was looking up the fact, and between the first day of her governorship, January 1st, 2019, till about 2 or 3 days ago, Exxon had created more than 7,500 discharges into the air or onto the water. That comes to about 5 spills a day. And has there been one penalty, one violation meted out against this company? No. And so for that, they give out their gifts to the politicians. Yes, please look the other way, they say, with their money. And then the government complies with that. Now, our governor, after Alejandra and I were speaking to her the other night, says, oh, it's the legislature's fault because they won't give her agencies enough money. But there is a question of priority. And, you know, we all prioritize different things in our life. And we want the priority to be survival and to be protection of the earth because it's the only home we have. And their priority is to exploit and extract from the earth and then take all the money that they are reaping. And I mean, they are making more money than the history of money, than countries put together, many countries put together. And then what do they do with it? They buy out and undermine is the perfect word, any democracy that we have left. And that's what this bill really showcases, frankly. It says, hey, we're going to take our public money, straight up give it to the private energy corporations. We're going to remove your democratic rights, so you have no way to view what we're doing and to have any kind of public scrutiny. And then we're going to take that money, and when it doesn't work, oh, sorry, because it hasn't worked. Like, it hasn't worked. We know that it hasn't worked internationally, and it hasn't worked in the United States. All hydrogen production has in the United States has ended up in a big old flop. And what has happened? I mean, there was a project in Georgia. I think they spent $8 billion, and it didn't even produce 1 kilowatt of electricity, not one. And then what do they want? Well, all those people who had such a great idea to have a hydrogen facility, they got their money. They got paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in compensation per year, if not more than that. And then who's left holding the bag? And it's a bag of not only stranded assets, but it's of contamination, and it's of pollution to the earth. And here is a time that we have to be focused on solving the climate crisis, and this only will exacerbate it.
Well, I know that's God. No, that's such a huge shell game, and this is very dangerous and very important that we have these people defeat that. One thing in your research that caught my eye was the thing about the Surface Water Quality Bureau, and it says that since Governor Grisham has been in office, XTO has poisoned the water or earth at the rate of approximately 5 toxic waste discharges per day with no punishment. Chevron's responsible for 686 spills, the equivalent of a spill every other day. ConocoPhillips, 936 spills, the equivalent of a spill almost every day. Spills are self-reported and do not result in fines or other consequences.
Yep. That's really what's happening, like on the ground in New Mexico.
And that's just in New Mexico?
That's just in the Permian. No, that's everywhere. That's everywhere in New Mexico.
Well, that's bad enough.
That's everywhere in New Mexico. I was gonna say it's only in the Permian Basin, but it's not. It's in the Four Corners region as well.
Yeah. Well, Alejandro, do you want to add anything? We haven't heard much from you.
Well, I just want to say, just like as Marielle plugged in New Energy Economy, I mean, for folks to follow New Mexico No Fault Solutions Coalition, because we are tracking this year round. I mean, we were actually at the interim Legislative Finance Committee hearing, which both Patty Lindstrom and Nathan Smalls are chair and co-chair of, or until recently, because Patty was excused from that. But, to just alert people, right? Because there's a bigger piece to this, right? There's folks getting into the nuances of what this bill means for transition for workers, right? We all want transition for workers. But the thing is that this is something that has been coming down on an international level through the Conference of Parties spaces. And I think it's our job in New Mexico to think of the global South, to think of what is happening at a federal level and how New Mexico plays into this. Because during that interim Legislative Finance Committee meeting, they were talking about transportation. They were talking about creating hydrogen hubs for us to ship hydrogen to the ports of Los Angeles and in Houston. They want to make New Mexico a sacrifice zone for new energy for the rest of the United States, right? And this has a lot to it, because the Department of Energy has deemed this, and even nuclear, zero carbon and a clean energy. And those are the definitions that are embedded in HB 12. And so I want people to kind of start to put the dots together, that if they were talking about this for the legislature, this bill has been in the works. right? And the governor, even when it comes to the transition, wasn't interested in HB 188 until it was coupled with private-public partnerships and codifying these pieces into the process of killing IPRA and killing procurement rules, as well as defining what is clean carbon in New Mexico, what is carbon free. Because while people believe that hydrogen is clean, it is highly explosive, and things like blue and green hydrogen use intense amounts of water and land. So just want to connect that to folks, and for folks to follow New Mexico No Fault Solutions, because we've been working on this analysis for a while. We've been working with a lot of international groups like the Indigenous Environmental Network, Grassroots Global Justice, the Climate Justice Alliance, who have been in these conference of party spaces, and we're just seeing this come down into New Mexico now, but it's been in the works by the fossil fuel companies for a very long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just to reiterate what Mariel said earlier, if you go to New Energy Economy, I've got a continuation, New Energy Economy, salsalabs.org. I don't know if that's the exact website, but you can click and find a process that can auto-generate emails to everybody on that's sponsoring the bill and everybody on the House Energy and Natural Resources Committee. So if it passes, well, we don't want this to happen at all, but say it passes, does it go directly to the floor after this?
No, I forget where it goes next. I'll look it up while you're talking, but it's going to go to another committee, I believe. And then it goes to the floor of the House, and then it has to go to the Senate as well. Mm-hmm. So,
okay, so we have a little bit more time. Yeah.
Yeah, but let's start with people coming to the House Energy Committee. It goes to CEDC.
I will say this too. There is no appropriation in HB 12. The appropriation for HB 12, the money for this is in the budget bill, HB 2, under the Advanced Technology Fund. And so for folks who are worried about, some of the pieces, the good pieces of this, right? Like the money for workers transitioning, or even now San Juan cleanup, right? It's all in this $50 million piece within the budget bill. So I want also folks to keep that in mind, because if HB 12 is killed in committee or by the public, there's still a fighting chance to get the things that we actually do want, which is 100% renewables and transition for workers. Like, we can still make that happen with that 50 million. And there's other federal resources that the state can access. So killing this bill would not kill that pathway. And I want people to know that too.
Are there home-based or New Mexico-based companies or technologies that are ready to help in the switchover from hopefully from oil and gas and to renewable energy?
Well, yes, we have a bill, SB 165, that the No Fault Solutions Coalition is supporting, and that is Local Choice Energy Act. And what we want is the opposite, the extreme opposite of this bill, which really extracts the money from the people of New Mexico and gives it to the corporation, is what HB 12 stands for. And Local Choice Energy, which is SB 165, does the opposite. It will rely on municipalities and tribal entities, keep the money local, produce local energy, create the jobs here and keep them here, and invest in solar and wind, and bring down, what a concept, bring down our electricity bills. So yeah, these are the two alternative pathways that are before us. And it's important for people to feel like, hey, there are actual answers. And one is about local investment and community control and reliance on solar and wind that don't contaminate the earth. And the other one is about extreme extraction and further privatization and exacerbating crises that we are already facing.
Yeah, well, that's great information. This is a fantastic interview. We're kind of winding down. Would you ladies like to add anything before we go?
Just that we'd love for you to show up to House Energy on Saturday in room 317. In room 317. And if you can't come in person, please join on Zoom. Send a letter to the House Energy Committee members and tell them why you oppose HB 12. There's plenty of information on both the New Energy Economy and in New Mexico No Fault Solutions website. I will say that if it passes House Energy, it goes to House Commerce and Economic Development Committee next. That's where it goes next. But perhaps with your help, with everybody standing up, with people power, we can make the legislators respond to the people instead of the corporations that are harming us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will just add, our website is nofaultsolutions.com. And, follow Yucca, Youth United for Climate Crisis Action, Pueblo Action Alliance, Indigenous Lifeways, because we need a new way. We need young folks. We need Indigenous folks. We need everybody. We need frontline, grassroots, environmentalists, public health workers. But just to keep following this, because we will keep following it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Ronnie talk to Russia before it's too late, before it's too late, before it's too late. Ronnie talk to Russia before it's too late, before they blow up the world. You can go to the zoo, but can't feed gorillas, can't feed gorillas, left-wing gorillas. Go to the zoo, but don't feed gorillas who want to blow up the world. Ronnie, if you're dead before I get to meet you, before I get to meet you, before I get to meet you. Ronnie, if you're dead before I get to meet you, don't say I didn't warn you. Ronnie, talk to Russia before it's too late, before it's too late, before it's too late. Ronnie, talk to Russia before it's too late, before they blow up the world, before they blow up the world. Don't you blow up my world.
Hi, this is Tom with That Saturday Show and Activist Community Podcast. We're back, and we just heard our music director, Matt John, doing Ronnie Talk to Russia. And now we have Andres Valdes, the Executive Director of Vecinos United, who has been back and forth to the state legislature on law enforcement bills, SB 252, in front of the Ethics Committee about collusion between Hector Balderas and our new Attorney General, Raul Torres. And he's got some pretty interesting tidbits following what's going on up at the Roundhouse. Hi, Andres. How you doing?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having me on. This stuff is important, so thanks again.
Well,
Yeah,
go ahead and get it all out.
well, where do I start? But basically, I should start by saying there are three bills having to do with police oversight, and all of them are fairly good. Um, One of them is the House Bill 503, introduced by Patricia Roybal Caballero and Camelia Herndon, and it
Pamela Herndon?
basically,
Yeah.
yeah, it basically calls for a citizen review board established, and along with that is yeah, basic open public hearings, independent prosecutors, and it's quite a lengthy bill.
Well, that's what we've been looking for and backing for a number of years, right?
Exactly, that's it.
And what bill number is that again?
And that's House Bill 503. Please look it up. Just look up state legislature and it'll guide you through a process. The other is Senate Bill 265. This is being introduced by Senator Antoinette Cedillo Lopez. And uh, this bill, again, pretty much does the same thing. It shall mean, it calls for the state police department to maintain a lead role in investigations, but members of an outside agency shall be required to assist. Um, what's interesting about this whole thing is that the attorney general, who we're accusing of collusion, has issued a scathing report against this bill, and that actually the bill was pulled from committee uh, because of the Attorney General's basically a decision to bring in what he considers the stakeholders regarding police review. And he wants to have a meeting with people to decide, but something that we all can agree on. Well, that's going to be kind of hard. How can we agree with the fact that he, in a sense, is has had covered up or was a part of a cover up on the Alicia Lucero case, girl who was shot 21 times by Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department. So that's going to be hard to see how we can all be on the same page about stuff like that. Plus, his scathing report towards the the bill analysis that he does, and this is exactly what they do to destroy bills. These legislators swallow this information with hook and sinker, and that's why Antoinette pulled the bill out of committee because she knew she didn't have the votes to get it passed, and she has to work with the Attorney General Raul Torres, again, who were accusing of collusion with Hector Balderas over the death of this young girl. So, and then I need to also mention the bill of Senator Harold Pope and Angelica Rubio. It's House Senate Bill 252. And might I add, all of these bills really need to be tracked and supported. The thing that really needs to be looked at is for people to call in and question the credibility and the truthfulness and what Raul Torres is proposing. He's opposing independent investigations. He's opposing public hearings. He's opposing everything that we're proposing to have some sort of accountability. Right now, we have none. In fact, we've filed an ethics complaint with the Ethics Commission, um, um, basically accusing him of violating his oath in office that are actually actual violations of the law. And so we're at odds with this guy that Senator Antoinette Cedillo Lopez has pulled the bills out of her committee so that he can have a meeting with all of the stakeholders. Basically, I guess the ACLU, the family, and the community, and that includes us. So if this meeting ever happens, the community needs to show up in force and oppose this guy and actually try to force some sort of public information about how the heck they managed to come up with a decision that there wasn't enough evidence for a successful conviction on this case. Just the fact that they couldn't do that is proof that they are being untruthful. They're not telling the truth. I highly doubt that there was an extensive investigation done, as Hector Balderas claims, and know that he's adjudicated this case. He just made it so easy for the new incoming Attorney General Raul Torres not to have to deal with it. So as far as they're concerned, this is past them. And as far as we're concerned, no, this is the start, and we need to have accountability over this case. And we can't let this state allow murder by police, go unquestioned. And the people need to speak up, and it's not happening. I'm concerned. So basically, you might have
So,
some questions about some of the things I just brought up.
yeah, can you send me a synopsis and where it goes from there? And the second, they allow a public meeting, and please get us all that information.
Well, I'll surely give it a try. I am so swamped with everything that's going on, Tom. But let's see what I can do. I'm like flying by the toes, by the feet, by my feet here, like just the toes of my feet here. But yeah, there's so much going on. It's amazing. Plus, other big issues important.
Do you know what the exact status of Senate Bill 252 is and where it goes next?
Yes, the status is that it's been pulled from committee. That
It
is,
has been pulled from committee.
I'm sorry, 252. You were referring to 252.
No, the Pope Rubio bill.
Okay, so all of
the law enforcement, whatever.
Okay, all of them are law enforcement,
Right.
and they all differ in some forms. Like Harold Pope's bill, Senate Bill 252, is a very, very lengthy and detailed, and it delves into not just the criminal activity of police, but also a lot having to do with the administrative process that actually should be set up in a sense, doing the work that the Department of Justice should have done a long time ago. But so it's a very interesting bill. It's different from Senate Bill 265 that has been pulled from committee, and there's no schedule. It's not scheduled, and it's not going to be scheduled until this meeting takes place, according to Senator Antoinette Cedillo Lopez.
And you said that's Bill 262, right?
Okay.
I'm seeing that Senate Bill 252 is still with the Senate Judiciary Committee and
Yes.
it's pending right now.
Right. Senate Bill 252 is that's the one by Senator Harold Pope and Angelica Rubio.
Right.
Go ahead.
And you said Antoinette's was Senate Bill 262?
265.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a completely different bill in front of me. Let me see what that says. Okay.
Yes.
This says that this is 265. It says no sponsors available at this time. This is
Yeah.
one vote for gratis pro trial account.
Yeah,
No, this is something weird on this website I'm looking at.
on
This says
Senate Bill 265, I can read the short,
it says
short title.
it's pending with the State Health and Public Affairs Committee.
Right, which is short for that the bills have been pulled, that they're pending basically on the sponsor of the bill, wanting to put them back into committee, and she won't until Raul Torres has a meeting with quote unquote the stakeholders.
Okay, I'm looking at this. This is a kind of a funky national website, and it only has one page of the bill, but
Yeah,
it basically says Senate Bill 262 relating to criminal procedure, providing a reporting mechanism and an assignment of a prosecutor for an in-custody death or when a person suffers great bodily harm or death after a peace officer uses force against the person, providing for an independent investigation, requiring a quarterly investigation report, requiring a detailed report for declination of prosecution.
that is correct. And again, it's Senate Bill 265. Yes. Yes, that's exactly the short title of the bill. And Senate House Bill 503 by Patricia Rebal Caballero and Pamelia Herndon is, you want me to read the short title on that one?
Hold on. What number was that? House Bill what?
That's House Bill 503.
503?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and, okay. Partisan Bill 503, House Bill. It's in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Roybal Caballero, Pamela Herndon. Okay, so what's the synopsis of this bill again?
So it's relating to law enforcement enacting an independent review of Force Act,
Oh, okay.
establishing
Independent Review of Force Act, like you just said, yeah.
right, establishing a process for the independent investigation and prosecution of deadly force cases, creating the Deadly Force Citizen Review Board, establishing a special prosecutor database from which to appoint a prosecuting attorney in a deadly force case, allowing the appointment of a multi-agency task force or a separate law enforcement agency to conduct investigations, empowering the Attorney General to review and prosecute deadly force cases if declined by an appointed special prosecuting attorney, providing for citizen review of deadly force cases and recommendations for disciplinary action making and appropriation. So,
Well, that's great. There must be marked opposition to all of these bills to some degree, right?
ask me that again.
There should be is there a certain wave of opposition to these bills, or do they look positive right now, or what in general is going on, or are they just all stalled right now?
Well, from my perspective, unfortunately, they look all dead because legislators have a perspective that unless the Attorney General, unless the law enforcement lobby supports these bills, they're dead. I'm not going to say they don't worship law enforcement, but I'm not going to say they're intimidated by law enforcement, but like pretty much everything they say is they'll vote against anything law enforcement will kill. And in the forefront, the head of law enforcement is Raul Torres, the Attorney General.
Yeah.
And so with the scathing report that he wrote against the first bill that was up for committee, we can pretty much expect scathing reports on the rest of the legislation being proposed in a strong opposition from the law enforcement lobby. This includes the Association of Counties and Municipalities, It includes Association of Municipalities, which is separate, and it includes the Association of Police Officers Associations all across the state,
So,
and
so,
state,
so like,
state police.
yeah, so like Albuquerque, for instance, the member of that association would be the APD union, and not the
Right.
mayor or anybody else.
Yeah, they'll show up to kill these bills. Yes,
Yeah.
and with the intimidation of legislators, I shouldn't say intimidation. I'm not exactly sure what proper word to use, but it's
Lobbying
at that
pressure,
level.
maybe. Lobbying pressure, yeah. I don't know. Well, this is like the discussion we had
It's a
earlier.
pattern
What?
every year. This happens every year. This is not
Yeah,
new to this year. It's like
right. So like the discussion we had before on the advanced energy technologies, that bill that we want uh, stopped or destroyed as soon as possible. What that has the government, the national government, private companies taking over what they think is the greening of New Mexico, but it looks like a horrible mistake. The same thing with this. There's all these great bills for police accountability, but as you can see, there's their forces are exerting huge pressure, and like the private companies like Exxon and Conoco and all that. It seems like Raul Torres wants to surround all that and have complete power over any type of law enforcement decisions.
that most certainly appears to be like a good perspective of what the heck's going on here. But yeah, it's unfortunate for the whole progressive community on many issues. Um, it's basically because the state legislature is made up of conservatives who are mostly Republicans, but quite a few Democrats. So we have conservative Democrats, we have the Republicans, and then we have the I'm going to say this, the lily-livered liberals. And so when we have this a makeup of the legislature in that form, corporate corporate power has a lot of power, and they succumb a lot, much to corporate interests, and so and they play along with us, making us think that our bills are getting places when they're not. And even on what they did last year was pretty bad. This fraud that they basically committed on police reform, which is the creation of well, it started with House Bill 4, but it had to do with police immunity, and that was a fraud because there was already laws in place to cover
Yeah.
that. And
Mhm.
so on and on with these guys. And then the other problem is we don't have enough community getting in there to speak up. If the community doesn't
Yeah.
speak up, which is really the only possible savior and hope that we could have of making anything happen, is not there. So
Well,
we
we'll
want.
stay. Yeah, we'll stay on top of this, and hopefully we can get some other people on the program for next week. Everybody listening, if you're with us still, please go to nmlegis.gov. Track these bills to the bill finder. You can call the general number, which is let's
Yeah,
see, that's the
I,
Legislative
that's
Finance Committee. Let's see if I can find the hotline. Um, I don't know.
yeah.
Do you have the hotline with you?
If you call 505-986-4600,
Okay, that's
you
right.
you you'll get the main number, and you'll connect to it.
Right,
And
and then you can find the sponsors of the bill
yeah,
and email them, support them, follow the committee that it's in front of, find out who those committee members are, and email them or call them. This is both issues that we're talking about today are extremely important for the future in New Mexico. Andreas, we are out of time, but I want to thank you very much for following this and coming back on the show.
Oh, thank you again, and I hope we can get people talking to these legislators and really calling them.
Yeah, we've got to put together a campaign on both of these issues and get as many people as possible aware of this. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Tom.
Until the next time, it's time to say goodbye. When you out here in the streets, keep it real 505. We love everybody, we just want to let you know. Thanks for tuning in to that Saturday show.